Welcome to Dance Talks. My guest today is Elizabeth Castellano, and I want to thank you for being here. You've written a book. It's your first book. It's called Save What's Left, and it's created quite a stir, even before it's being published, which I believe is probably next week.
Yes.
And then, first of all, I'd like to ask you to tell me about some of the things that have happened before it's even been published they're quite extraordinary, with book awards and stuff. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's gotten some good reviews from Kirkus Review, gave it a starred review. We got People Magazine. It was one of the best books of the summer for People Magazine. It's all been very exciting. It's gotten in a lot of publications, Time Magazine. So it's been just like a wild ride, really.
Are you on tour now?
It starts next week when the book comes out. The book comes out the 27th.
27th. Yep. It sounds, first of all, tell us a little bit about let's talk a little bit about the book. I started reading it in anticipation of talking to you about it, and I read 100 pages in about an hour. I could not put it down. I will tell anybody listening to this that this is if Tina Fey wrote a novel never said before, it's hilariously funny. And it concerns something about a home on the East End that's pretty recognizable, but we'll get to that. First of all, why did you, what made you feel you could write a book like this, what have you been doing prior to this to become a writer?
Well, I've been trying to write for quite a while. So probably I started in 2013. I started trying to write and wrote a novel about a 22-year-old who couldn't get a job, which was obviously based on real life, which nobody was interested in, which I understand now, being 33, that nobody wants to hear that. So I did odd things. I lived in the city for a while. Then I moved back here to the North Fork. This is where I grew up. And I just saw how much the North Fork had changed and all the big houses going up, the tourism, everything that was going on. And I dipped my toe a little bit into local politics and went to a few meetings, saw what was happening in my little town. And I just thought, this could be a novel. There's something funny about this. There's something absurd about these small town conflicts. And so that's really where the inspiration came from, was my hometown.
Well, the book is about is it's told in the first person by a woman who's recently divorced and is moving to Eastern Long Island, to a town which isn't one of our towns, but is obviously one of our towns. But why didn't you just say where it was? I mean,
yeah, I wanted it to be, because I have been to quite a few beach towns and different places, that I wanted to have a universal appeal. I wanted it to be every beach town, that this is happening on the North Fork, it's happening in the Hamptons, but it's also happening on the Jersey Shore and Martha's Vineyard. It's happening everywhere. And even in, besides beach towns, happens in a lot of small towns, that people have to learn how to live with each other. People, even in a condo, people have to learn how to be neighbors, how to live with each other. There's always these sort of meetings. And I think that's very interesting, how people live together, how they get along.
let me ask you to read a part of the book, because the small town is preposterously dysfunctional. But although in many ways it isn't, but you've taken it to such extremes that it's something you can't quite put down.
Okay, so let's see if I could find. I feel like I should just probably start at the beginning, just because it gives you a better sense of it. Never buy a beach house. Don't even dream about one. Don't save your money or call real estate agents or pick out a white couch. If you must do something, pray for the people who do own beach houses. Pity them. Certainly don't, under any circumstance, envy them. Maybe it's too late for you. Maybe you've gone ahead and picked up some starfish tchotchkes and turquoise nonsense, and you feel you're in too deep. Well, then let me tell you right now that those warm summer nights you're dreaming about will be spent arguing over parking restrictions and beach access. You won't paint or write or play tennis. You'll be too busy filing code enforcement complaints in the town attorney's office. You'll wake up to the sound of leaf blowers, and you'll either spend half your life trying to protect a tree or cut one down. The village will be charming. The view will be beautiful. You'll attend countless meetings about how to keep them that way. Do yourself a favor and put a lawyer on retainer. Don't waste any time about that. You will, without question, not be on speaking terms with at least one of your neighbors in a year's time. And if you're like me, you'll eventually end up in a courthouse conference room in some godforsaken town, nervously clutching a tattered, overflowing cardboard Christmas box with a picture of a dopey snowman and the words "Bring on the snow." The box will be filled with letters and emails and blueprints and surveys and photos that began as minor grievances, but are now exhibits in a money laundering scheme. And what you'll think to yourself as you stare at that stupid snowman and search frantically for a tissue to wipe away the sweat, which now routinely rockets from the top of your head, is this: why did I ever buy that house?
That's quite, it's quite an opener, and it then follows it along. So basically, what you've written is about this person. This person is telling about buying a sight unseen a beach house that's been recommended to her by a friend.
Right.
And it winds up that she comes out and finds that the beach house is next door to a massive construction site of one of the largest residences in the entire United States. And that large amounts, at various points, various pieces of construction debris fall down on her house.
Right.
And even on her head at various times. And the neighbors are all full of gossip, and it's a complete disaster. That's sort of what you've written.
Yeah, it's a little Alice in Wonderland. She comes and it's just up is down. She doesn't know what to make of this place and these people.
Tell us why it's called Save What's Left.
Well, Save What's Left is a big mantra out here. And, it's bumper stickers. And so I've heard that for, my whole life, Save What's Left. And so it's obviously a nod to the environmental movement and save what's left of what we have, of the natural beauty. But it's also save what's left of this woman's marriage, of her sense of self, of who she is now. She's retired, she's newly separated, and she has to sort of save what's left of herself and eventually her marriage.
Without actually reading it, just remember that part you wrote and tell us about that, if you could, about her reasons why she's blaming herself or blaming him for the dissolution of their marriage. There was this one line
yeah, it's going to be hard for me to find it quickly, but so she basically moves to Kansas City. She marries young. She moves to Kansas City. Her husband is a cardiologist, and they sort of settle. They get into a real routine of Kansas City life. And one part in the book is based on real life, is based on my parents, that they went on a honeymoon, and the protagonist says, well, let's not take our wedding rings because we'll be swimming. So let's keep them here in the apartment in the city. And they go to St. Martin, and they come back from their honeymoon and they see that the door is open. Everything has been robbed. There's dishes in the sink. And policeman shows up, and she says, I don't understand. They took everything from the safe. And the husband says, how did they get into the safe? And she says, well, I bought the safe for fire. And he says, well, how did they know we'd be gone for the week? Because they lived in the apartment for the week. And she says, well, I left a note on the door for the paper boy. We'll be gone for the week in St. Martin, so don't deliver the paper, please. And that is something my mother did, and the whole apartment.
What about getting into the safe? How did that work?
Oh, right. So the key was in the safe because she bought it for fire. So she wasn't worried about theft. So this is
very hard to listen to this without smiling. And I think I think it's a wonderful book. I think it's going to do very well. And there's sort of a dysfunctional quality about it that I think is maybe it's more like on the North Fork, but much of it seems to be written about a particular house that was built in Sagaponack over about an 8-year period. That's the second largest residential site. I guess you could call it that. Is in terms of square footage, it's over 100,000 square feet.
Wow.
And maybe you don't even know about
I don't
this.
even know. I don't even know about it. No.
Out in the end, took 6 or 7 years to build, and it was wound up in the end that the owner was a very rich man who owned some kind of a mine in South America, and he was using the money from the mine to build his mansion, and had to repay some of it or all of it to the stockholders who had sued him.
Oh,
Anyway, that seems to be, as soon as I read about how you're in a courtroom about money laundering,
right. Right.
but
Yeah.
is what that story is. But the point is that I'm making is that I don't know that it's quite as hysterical with the local people as it is on the North Fork, rather than the South Fork. So it plays very well for, I guess, summer people who are in the class of people that would come out and buy a little summer place. But it also does work well for almost any small town that is having a big fight about something.
Right.
And just briefly, I wanted you to talk about it, of course, more than me, but it reminded me of Manlius, New York, where there are 2 swans that have been in their names. They have names living in a pond. And some kids came by and took one of them and cooked it and ate it. Some college kids from Syracuse University, and and they found that the swans had their wings cut so they couldn't fly because of a state law that said you couldn't. They wanted to keep swans from being attacked and being attacking to people, and so it became a petition in the mayor and all meetings, and it's been crazy funny.
Yeah.
That's what your book.
I read about in Dan's paper in the piping plovers. Didn't somebody move the nest so he could have a private beach?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I brought some Dan's paper memorabilia. I was looking through old photos and things for the promotion of the book, and I found Roadmap to the North Fork by Dan's paper. It's like a hand-drawn map put out.
I drew it.
Yeah. So that's let's see, 1986.
Sure. That's what. Yeah.
There you go.
There weren't many roads. I started doing that on the South Fork, and there were, like, now there's about twice as many roads as I drew on that map.
Right.
And I had named a lot of the dotted line roads, which were dirt roads, because they were names. Anyway, that's another story. Where did you grow up, and what's your background in writing, and where were you educated and stuff?
So I grew up in New Suffolk. I went to Little Red Schoolhouse that has 3 rooms. At one point, we had 9 kids, grades K through 6. And that sort of feeds in also to the idea in the book that, when you have 9 kids in your entire school, you have to learn how to get along. You have to be friends with everybody. Everyone's invited to your birthday party when there's 9 kids. And so there is that sense in the book too, where it's such a tiny little town that even if we're squabbling about things, we have to be there for each other. We have to. So that was my elementary school. Then I went to Rainer Country Day School in Spionk for a couple of years. I went to Southfield High School and then Bates College, where I studied theater. And then I moved to New York, and I did sort of odd jobs, did a lot of interviewing mostly. And
theater?
Sorry?
What kind of jobs were you?
Theater, TV. I mean, I applied for everything. I applied to be a tour guide at Woodlawn Cemetery. I didn't get the job. I was a film extra. I still get emails and texts from the film extra asking me, well, do you have fake blood, and can you meet us in an abandoned factory in Bushwick at 3 a.m. and be a zombie? So I still get those emails. So I did a little of everything, and but was always pursuing writing. In the last few years, really pursued it seriously, and wrote this, and it seemed to be the right idea and to be something that really was turning the traditional beach read on its head. I see so many beach reads, so many books about little beach towns, and it's always that the beach town is paradise. It's just perfect. It's the perfect, beautiful setting where other conflicts happen. And in my book, it's the beach town is the conflict. That's the, it's at the heart of the story. It's driving the plot. So yeah, that's what I've been doing for the last few years, really, is this book and working on it. I got an agent. And
have you done any writing or reporting as a journalist or anything of
I had a column when I was in high school in the Suffolk Times that was sort of a similar humor column. And yeah, no, I didn't. I didn't do. I sort of figured I would end up in newspapers, but went down the more the novel writing path.
So have you moved back to the East End, or is this or not?
I'm here now temporarily while the book tour is going on. It's helpful to be here, but this is my parents' house. And so this is my home base for the summer while I'm doing all the promotion. And then I'll have to see.
Where do you like, where have you lived? You've been in the city?
I've been in the city. I was on the Upper West Side, which I like a lot. But I don't know. I feel like maybe a change, maybe somewhere new. I'm not sure. I always loved San Francisco. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where to go. I have to figure it out. I'm taking suggestions at the moment.
Well, my suggestion to you would be that with this book, you apply to be a writer for Saturday Night Live.
I wish. It's one of my favorite. Loved it. Big fan, Saturday Night Live. And that's what I used to do. I used to hang out at NBC and try and get a job there. And just
What's your favorite passage in the book you've written, this book?
I don't know. Let's see. I mean, there's a whole passage about how beach towns attract rule breakers. There are a lot of rules in beach towns because beach towns attract rule breakers, and that, you can sit on the beach and be in violation of 15 laws, but nothing's going to happen to you. You can get slapped with $1,000 fine, but you'd be the first. That only in a beach town, you'd sort of have to be reminded to wear shoes and a shirt in a store. It's people forget how to behave when they come here. They'll pick flowers off people's property. They'll just start snipping from, we had people just come and sit down at our table in the backyard and have a picnic. Just, people, and they wouldn't do it in like a cul-de-sac in suburbia, but in a beach town, people really, there's a lot of signs about basic rules. Are you writing or thinking about writing another book? I have a second book that I'm working on, and I'm writing the protagonist in this book is 60. So that's, I'm writing a younger protagonist now, and I'm actually finding it more challenging than writing the 60-year-old. I guess I'm 60 at heart. So it's set partially in Ireland, sort of a girl going through a rough patch, but in the same tone as this book. Well, I wish you luck with that, and particularly with this one. And thank you for being on the podcast. And I will look forward to you're going to have a reading at the Riverhead Library on June 28th. Right. We're trying to get this out in the paper before then, but certainly online before then. Okay, great. And I have Bookhampton. I'll be at Bookhampton on the 10th. When is Bookhampton? In July 7th. I think it's at 5 p.m. East Hampton? Yep. Thanks for being here. And I appreciate your book very much. Thanks so much. It means a lot to me.